What's the true reason homelessness keeps rising in Oregon, even with its prosperity and progressive policies? Oregon, home to many of the country's most stunning landscapes, also faces one of the nation's highest homelessness rates, today right now. While major cities such as Portland continue expanding, the population of homeless people has jumped, creating a crisis many struggle to grasp fully. What's fueling this surge? Is it the soaring cost of living, or is something deeper at work? In this video, we dig into the underlying causes of Oregon's homelessness crisis, examining the layered factors behind this expanding problem today nationwide. Stick around to discover the reality behind this persistent challenge. An overview of Oregon's growing homelessness crisis.
As much as they can. The city doesn't want to recognize the fact that we've got a serious problem. I've actually seen regular families, women that have got kids out here sleeping in tents.
Homelessness in Oregon has climbed to alarming levels, with roughly 2,275 people currently living without secure housing. This reflects a notable rise of nearly 20% during the last 5 years. The problem, however, is not limited to one location. Although Portland, Oregon's largest city, remains the center of the crisis, smaller towns and rural communities are also experiencing growing homelessness. Could homelessness in Oregon be driven mainly by urban growth, or is there a deeper force shaping this crisis? The roots of homelessness in Oregon are complex and interconnected. Escalating housing costs play a central role as rents continue rising far faster than wages. For many residents, the goal of owning a home or even renting a reasonably priced apartment feels increasingly out of reach. But is housing cost alone pushing this crisis forward, or are broader systemic failures also involved? Beyond the lack of affordable housing, mental health struggles and substance use disorders are major contributing factors.
I'd say when if I'm not doing fentanyl, which is my current drug of choice, I'm an alcoholic. But I'm not really into weed anymore. In my teenage years, I dabbled in a lot of psychedelics, like mind expansions.
Many people experiencing homelessness in Oregon live with untreated mental illness and addiction, which makes securing steady work or stable housing even more difficult. Can the state's existing mental health and addiction treatment systems truly handle the scale of this crisis? Or are they simply unable to keep pace with the rising need for care? Although homelessness affects the entire country and the homeless in America, Oregon's situation is especially severe. The mix of rapidly increasing housing costs, a strained mental health system, and limited long-term support services has created a perfect storm that continues to worsen conditions. How can Oregon disrupt this cycle? Efforts to address homelessness have produced only modest results, and despite multiple initiatives, housing programs and support services still fail to meet demand. Will the state manage to reverse this trend, or is the crisis destined to deepen further? Mental illness and addiction, a dangerous crossroads. One of the leading drivers of homelessness in Oregon and throughout the United States is the deeply intertwined connection between mental health struggles and substance use. Many people experiencing homelessness are also living with untreated mental health conditions. From anxiety and depression to more serious illnesses such as schizophrenia and PTSD, these conditions severely limit their ability to keep stable housing. Addiction adds another layer to the crisis. Substance use, particularly involving opioids, methamphetamine, and alcohol, is widespread among Oregon's homeless population.
Oh yeah, I use fentanyl / trank, and I don't like it. I hate it. It's a disease. It's a drug that you just can't just stop. You have to do it every couple of hours or you get sick as a dog. And I mean sick. Like I have part of my tongue missing because I had a seizure. It is not a good withdrawal at all. It's scary.
The state has witnessed a troubling increase in addiction, especially tied to fentanyl, which has made the crisis even more severe. People battling addiction often struggle to maintain employment or manage money, placing them at greater risk of losing their homes. Sadly, Oregon's mental health and addiction treatment systems are not equipped to handle the growing need. Many individuals facing homelessness are dealing with overlapping challenges, mental illness, and substance use disorders that they cannot overcome without help. Limited access to affordable, timely health care only worsens the situation, leaving far too many without meaningful support. This shortage of care has created a damaging cycle where mental health crises and addiction feed into one another, pushing people deeper into homelessness. Can Oregon interrupt this pattern, or will the crisis continue to spiral? Although the state has launched programs aimed at improving mental health and addiction care, these efforts are often underfunded and lack the capacity to create lasting change. The link between mental health addiction and homelessness is clear, and without comprehensive, properly funded solutions, the crisis is unlikely to ease. To truly address homelessness in Oregon, the state must adopt a more coordinated strategy, one that unites mental health care, addiction recovery services, and affordable housing to provide a realistic long-term path out of homelessness. Policy changes and the opioid epidemic driving homelessness in Oregon. Shifts in both state and federal policy have also played a meaningful role in worsening homelessness throughout Oregon. For years, the state has pursued progressive laws intended to confront homelessness directly. Yet several major policy changes in recent years have produced unintended outcomes that have helped intensify the crisis instead. The opioid epidemic, especially the surge of fentanyl, has deeply affected people experiencing homelessness. Data from the Oregon Health Authority shows opioid overdose rates have surged, with homeless individuals bearing a disproportionate share of opioid addiction. This epidemic has strained local resources and pushed an already underfunded healthcare system to its limits. Although programs such as needle exchanges and other harm reduction efforts have been introduced, these steps alone have failed to slow the growing wave of opioid-related homelessness. At the same time, Oregon's decision to decriminalize certain drugs, most notably through Measure 110, passed in 2020, reduced arrests for drug-related offenses. While the policy aimed to ease pressure on the criminal justice system and shift toward a public health response, it also sparked concerns about how to balance addiction treatment with the realities of decriminalization. Critics argue the measure was not matched with enough support services, including rehabilitation and mental health care, leaving many people without meaningful assistance. As a result, Oregon's strategy for addressing homelessness and addiction remains a fragile balancing act. Even though the state has made efforts to expand support and recovery options for those struggling with addiction, available resources still fall far short of growing demand. Without stronger oversight and better coordination among services, the number of people experiencing homelessness continues to rise. This raises an important question. Is Oregon's approach actually working, or is it making the situation worse? While treating addiction as a health issue rather than a criminal one is a worthy goal, the lack of a unified plan addressing both root causes and urgent needs presents a serious obstacle. Without sufficient mental health care and addiction recovery infrastructure, many individuals are left without the treatment necessary to heal and rebuild their lives. How the COVID-19 pandemic intensified homelessness in Oregon. The COVID-19 pandemic created unprecedented hardship for communities around the globe, and Oregon was no exception. One of the most serious outcomes of the pandemic was the sharp rise in homelessness across the state. As businesses closed their doors, unemployment surged, and entire sectors of the economy stalled, many Oregonians suddenly lost their source of income. For those already barely getting by, the pandemic became a breaking point, pushing them into homelessness. Although job losses affected people across all income levels, those living paycheck to paycheck suffered the most severe consequences. Early in the pandemic, eviction moratoriums prevented landlords from removing tenants, but these measures largely postponed the crisis rather than solving it. When the moratoriums expired, countless individuals and families were unable to repay back rent and were ultimately forced out of their homes. Federal stimulus checks and expanded unemployment benefits offered short-term relief. Yet for many households, this assistance was not enough to ensure lasting housing security. Beyond financial hardship, the pandemic sharply reduced access to vital support services. Shelters and community centers, often the last safety net for people experiencing homelessness, were forced to close or limit capacity due to public health restrictions. These shutdowns left many without shelter, healthcare, food access, or social support at a time when they needed it most. In numerous communities, tent encampments and makeshift shelters expanded as people had no alternative but to seek safety in public spaces. COVID-19 also took a heavy toll on the mental health of those already experiencing homelessness. Social isolation, fear of infection, and disrupted access to mental health care intensified emotional and psychological strain. Without regular social contact or consistent treatment for existing conditions, many people sank deeper into despair and hopelessness. The constant uncertainty of the pandemic only added to the trauma many were already carrying. In the aftermath of COVID-19, Oregon's homeless population continued to grow. Cities including Portland, Eugene, and Salem recorded noticeable increases with more people living in tents beneath overpasses or in other unstable settings. The pandemic-driven surge added yet another layer of complexity to Oregon's homelessness crisis. As the state worked to recover from the pandemic's economic and public health fallout, homelessness emerged as an even more urgent and pressing challenge. The ongoing shortage of affordable housing. One of the most persistent and serious forces driving homelessness in Oregon is the deep shortage of affordable housing. Over the last several decades, the state's population has increased steadily, especially in major cities such as Portland. This rapid population growth, combined with slow housing construction, has created a severe lack of affordable homes and apartments for low-income residents and families. Oregon's affordable housing shortage stems from multiple causes. First, rising land prices and construction costs have made it increasingly difficult for developers to build housing that remains affordable. Second, zoning rules and land use policies in many communities limit where and how new housing can be built, particularly multi-unit developments. In high-demand cities like Portland, the expense of constructing new housing often surpasses what low-income households can realistically afford. Homelessness in Oregon is not only about rising rents, it is also about limited availability. Even individuals with steady employment struggle to find permanent housing due to the shortage of affordable options. Although state leaders have taken steps to address the problem, including housing bonds and affordable housing programs, the magnitude of the crisis remains daunting. The demand for affordable housing continues to grow, while the supply falls far short of meeting that need. The housing shortage is especially harsh for vulnerable populations, including seniors living on fixed incomes, single parents, and people with disabilities. These groups often face the greatest barriers when searching for affordable housing due to both limited availability and their specific accessibility and cost requirements. In recent years, Oregon has introduced initiatives designed to expand affordable housing options. Still, these efforts have not kept pace with the increasing demand. The ongoing lack of affordable housing remains one of the strongest drivers of homelessness, and without major investment and meaningful reforms to zoning and land use laws, the situation is likely to grow even worse. Social safety nets, essential but overstretched. Oregon has put multiple social safety nets in place to assist people experiencing homelessness, yet these programs are frequently overburdened and underfunded. Public efforts such as emergency shelters, food programs, and basic medical services play an important role in providing short-term relief for individuals and families in crisis. Still, the reality is that these resources often fail to meet the scale of demand. As more people fall into homelessness each day, the system is pushed beyond its capacity. Why do programs meant to protect the most vulnerable seem unable to keep pace with a crisis that continues to grow? The core problem is that Oregon's safety net systems were never designed to address the underlying causes of homelessness. While they offer critical immediate assistance, they rarely help people escape homelessness permanently. Services like shelters and meal programs provide temporary stability, but they do not solve deeper issues such as housing affordability, mental health care, and addiction that keep people stuck without housing. How can Oregon shift from short-term responses toward lasting solutions that actually change outcomes? Oregon's current support structure is fragmented, especially for people facing several challenges at once. For those dealing with mental illness, substance use, and the absence of stable housing, existing services often fail to deliver meaningful support. What happens when a system created to help people is itself disjointed and inadequate? The absence of integrated solutions that combine housing with mental health and addiction treatment means many individuals never receive the comprehensive care they require. Accessing these safety net programs is also far from simple. Many people encounter long wait lists, complex paperwork, and strict eligibility rules. Emergency shelters, for instance, may offer immediate refuge, but they are frequently overcrowded. Those seeking help are sometimes forced to wait weeks or even months to secure a bed or transition into stable housing. This prolonged waiting period often deepens trauma and hardship, making recovery even more difficult for those already struggling. Is it possible the system is structured in a way that unintentionally sustains the very crisis it aims to resolve? In the end, while Oregon's social safety nets remain vital for short-term relief, they do not adequately address the long-term needs of the homeless population. Real progress will require reforming and expanding these programs to deliver comprehensive, lasting support. That means greater investment in mental health care, addiction treatment, and affordable housing to break the cycle of homelessness and help people regain stability. Without these changes, homelessness will continue to persist in Oregon, despite continued efforts to address it. A personal reflection on homelessness in America. When I look back over the years, it's hard not to feel a deep mix of sadness and frustration about the reality of homelessness in America. As someone who has witnessed this crisis grow, especially in places like Portland and throughout Oregon, I can't shake the feeling that we've failed to confront the deeper issues driving it. This problem goes beyond the shortage of affordable housing, although that remains a major factor. It also reflects the gradual loss of community, where people in need are too often overlooked or pushed aside. Growing up, there seemed to be a stronger shared sense of responsibility to care for those who were struggling. Today, it feels as though many people are left to survive on their own, particularly when mental illness or addiction enters the picture. These are the true roots of homelessness problems that can't be solved with temporary shelters or quick fixes alone. The homelessness crisis exposes broad systemic breakdowns in how we support one another. Without meaningful solutions that address mental health care, addiction treatment, and access to affordable housing, the cycle will continue unchecked. And even more importantly, when will we finally choose to act? The moment to do better is now. Conclusion. Oregon's homelessness crisis remains a complicated challenge that reflects the wider reality of homelessness in America today statewide. Although the state has taken steps to respond, shortages of affordable housing, weak mental health and addiction services, and underfunded social safety nets continue driving the crisis across communities statewide today now. To create real change, Oregon must pursue broad solutions that confront the core causes of homelessness and deliver long-term support for people in need directly. Without these reforms, conditions will keep deteriorating, leaving even more people without a stable place to call home anywhere.